day out there to all of my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. And let me share with you the theme. I'm calling it now a theme of this podcast is actually it's helping women break those internal barriers that's preventing you from what I call living your best life on your terms. Now, a lot of people say living your best life is like a cliche. Like that's not, yeah, we've heard that. We've heard the song and all of that. But let me share this with you and how I define that is that you're living in a way that maximizes your happiness, your true self, your authenticity, and also a fulfilled life. For example, you're just not living the status quo. You know how we have dreams and we're thinking about doing this and we're thinking about that. And then life goes on and you realize that you've not done that yet. So, in other words, it's like taking action toward what truly matters rather than what you only dream about. So my prayer has always been that when listeners, some of my listeners, or maybe all of them at times, will get an epiphany as you listen to these podcasts and decide, you know what, I think I'm going to make my move. I'm going to do things that I've always wanted to do because I do want to have a fulfilled life. So we talk about topics related to what I call self-improvement, self-reflection, or enables you to look in the mirror and say, wow, that sounds so much like me. But I have I'm calling her unique guest. And many of my guests are unique and special. But I could relate to her, and I'm certain that you will be able to relate as well based on just your life in general. So I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Marline Duroseau. Hi, Dr. Marline. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great, Miss Cassandra. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you are here. Listeners, the title of this podcast is Reclaiming Your Power When Life Does Not Go as Planned. And what I like to do is I want to read a little bit about Dr. Marline Duroseau because I want you to understand what qualifies her to do the things that she's doing because she's going to even do some bigger things. She is a leadership strategist, and I'm just over the moon about a TEDx speaker because that's one of my dreams. So I have to take action to be a TEDx speaker. She's also an author, a resilience expert. She helps women or helps people navigate life's disruptions. And boy, we have them with confidence, clarity, and purpose. She has worked 23 years of executive leadership experience. She brings her corporate insight and personal transformation to help women redefine success beyond pressure, timelines, and expectation. And listen, in her book titled It'll Happen by 30. And I can relate to that. And I'm going to share a little bit. Like I've always had a timeline. Like, okay, about 30, this is going to happen. By 35, this is going to happen. And guys, guess what? It didn't happen. But anyway, her vulnerability shares her 15-year infertility journey to encourage women facing delayed dreams, grief, and uncertainty. So her mission is to help you turn pain into purpose, reclaim your power, and lead boldly through every season of life. Wow. Now you're going to understand what's going to really, this definitely qualifies her for our discussion for sure. So I'm ready to dive in. I'm going to switch. I'm going to say Dr. Marline sometimes I'm going to say Duroseau. So I'll probably be all over the place.
Yes, and that's okay. I do go by Dr. Marr if that's easier. So that's what I go by now. So that's okay as well.
Okay, great. Listen, I've been preparing for this and reading about you, and I understand, and usually our background clearly shapes how we see the world. So I'd like to know, how did those experiences influence you? In addition, um, And what was some of the lessons in your background that enabled you to say, I'm gonna have to reframe some things that's going to help me move forward?
That's a fantastic question because sometimes we all look at our past as something that we just want to keep behind us.
Mhm.
And part of your past includes your past experiences from when you were growing up as a child, your family dynamics, anything that you've gone through. So, to specifically answer that particular question, my background is one of myself being a child of Haitian immigrants. I am a first
Mhm.
generation American. And one of the things that was always rampant in our household was education. And my parents
Mhm.
have, let up a little bit to meaning where the education doesn't necessarily have to come from a university or, a
Mhm.
college. They are really
Yeah.
finding value and in just the opportunity to learn. Don't think you know everything. You just always be open to learning something new because whatever you learn and your education is one thing that no one can take away from you. So that having that background specifically really ingrained the essence of who I am and how I, took on life because once you know different, and I don't want to say once you know better, you do better. I think when you have lived experiences and you know a different way or you've learned something new, it allows
Mhm.
you now to change your trajectory if needed, because now you have better information, right? Because
Exactly.
sometimes we want things in life, but we want to do it the way we want to do it. And why
Yeah.
is that? Who said that things have to happen in that particular way and there's no room to juggle or change? So I think that part of my background has really enabled me to say, okay, if I put a plan together, whether
Mhm.
it's at work, whether it's personal, whether it's social, and it doesn't go according to plan, I'm
Yes.
okay with learning something different. And learning doesn't mean I already know the answer. It's I'm learning from that past experience. What can I
Mhm.
now do differently? Who can I now employ and get on my side to give me even more insight so that I know what to do going forward? Because oftentimes, once you're willing and able to pivot, you can get
Yes.
to your destination. Because sometimes we still want to get to our destination, but want to do it in the way that we planned. But life doesn't happen like that. And once you're open to saying, okay, I need to be able to get on a detour and
Yes.
get there, you'll see how many more doors open for you.
Right. Right. So, one of the things that you do, and I had read earlier that you empower women to redefine
Yes.
success, right?
Correct.
Beyond pressure, timelines, but yet you continue to work in corporate. You
Yes.
work as an HR, CFO, in
Yeah.
corporate. Now, what you currently do in regards to empowering women to redefine success, what triggered that move for you? That because it sounds like you're going to transition a little bit into something different. What's that about?
Yes, absolutely. And it's so funny you asked that because success to me
Hmm.
before looked like exactly what my parents envisioned. You go to school, you get your education, you get your degrees, whatever certifications and trainings that you need. Because
Yeah,
what was the goal? To get a good job. Why do you
that's
need a good job? So that you can have income. You need income so that you can live, right?
that's
So
right.
success for a long time to me was that, right? Doing it in the manner of being a little bit more risk averse because
Mm,
you take on the way that they presented it is that you take on less risk once you've lined everything up that you need, right? So the risk
mhm.
of a corporate executive, for instance, being laid off compared to someone who maybe not a corporate executive. And then I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is how we were raised in terms of thinking. So
Sure.
the more you know, you're safer, if that makes sense, So
Yeah.
to me, that looked like success, which is the corporate route, because obviously, once you get your education, normally the normal progression or the natural progression is to go and get a good job, which
That's right.
oftentimes means in a good corporation. Now, that pivot for me
Uh-huh.
totally changed, right? When
Uh-huh.
I said, "Oh no, this is different for me." And what was happening was, although I was excelling in my education, I was excelling in my career, my
Mhm.
personal life took on a different turn. And
Yeah.
in that, situation that I dealt with, it involved still trying to keep that success, tunnel. I'm looking at it. I'm still trying to get there, but then I have this personal disruption. my my apologies. My personal disruption was infertility. So if I started off with this company, I have these degrees, I want to get promoted, right? I
Yeah.
want to get the raises. But then in the
Yeah.
meantime, I'm dealing with infertility. What does that mean? That
Yes.
means I'm in and out of work a lot. I may have to be
Mhm.
late because I have a doctor's appointment in the morning.
Mhm.
I may have
That's
to
right.
leave early because I have a procedure that needs to be done. So in the back of my brain, am I still successful if I can't show up every day to show my job, my managers, the folks in leadership, and the people that I'm in charge of in terms of leading with work, if I'm
Yeah.
not there to actually do the work? So I had to take a step back and say, no, I am still successful, because at the end of the day, what I give, my uniqueness, my level of contribution to the success of the company is also rooted in how I show up for my team, how I show up for my deadlines, how I show up for what I need, even though I may not be able to do it in 80 hours a
Yes.
week this month. It
Exactly.
happens only 60 hours a week this month because I have this personal thing going on. So once I was able to
Exactly.
navigate that and change my mindset a little bit, you remember that you
Mhm.
have to be willing to change, you have to be willing to adapt. And so
That's
I
right.
said, "No, I'm still successful, I'm still worthy. It just looks a little different now." And that's when
Mhm.
I said, you know what? I couldn't have gone through this personal disruption for no reason. I want to
Yeah.
be able to do more. I want more people to, which especially women, to know that just because you're dealing with these disruptions, it doesn't have
Mhm.
to stop you or cause
Mhm.
an impending situation on your ability to succeed, on your
Yeah.
ability to be happy, on your ability to adapt. And that's why after going through this 15-year infertility journey,
Mhm.
throughout the entire time I was writing, because dealing with infertility is not something that you prepare for, and there's no
Mhm.
roadmap to show you how to navigate it. So a lot
That's
of
right.
what I did involved journaling, and that eventually turned into my
Mhm.
first book. And after I wrote that book, Miss
Mhm.
Cassandra, I said, oh no, I have to do more. I need to talk about this. So many
Yeah.
people dealing with it. So that's why I said I can still be successful even if I transition and pivot out of corporate America, because
Yeah.
everything that I've learned, whether in school or not in school, through my lived experience, through my interactions with others, are the credentials and the experience I need to be successful outside of corporate America. So that's where that transition and being okay with that on a mindset level is helping me to shift.
Yeah, and I love that because I do remember time myself being in corporate. Don't bring your personal things to work. And and that's when those internal barriers come about.
Yes. Yeah.
Life happens. There are disruptions, infertility, taking care of a sick parent or aging parent.
Yeah.
I've known individuals that just was diagnosed with cancer, doing
Yeah.
phenomenal, but they needed to go for treatment. And then
Correct.
these are the ways how we feel based on what society
Correct.
perhaps told us that you're not doing well
Mhm.
because you're not at work. You're not working those certain number of hours. And that really can mess with your psyche. And I
Yes.
love it when you say you got to change your mindset.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so many things that I've said based on my experience, and I've heard you say this. You
Yeah.
have to have support. You
Yes.
have to, I don't say you have to, but for
Right.
me, and I know for you, you've had mentors,
Yes.
coaches along the way,
Yes.
because this is my follow-up question to that. When
Right.
do you think women, I'm talking about women, even though
Yes.
men, I know you're listening, but
Yes.
you
Yes.
all have women in your life. But when
Correct.
do you think, what does it take for somebody to realize that I am stuck? I'm dealing with imposter syndrome, and I'm not quite sure what that means, but I've heard about it. Or there's certain other things that I want to do, and I can't. It's like, what it's kind of like, have you found women to realize or acknowledge barriers that are in their lives that's keeping them stuck, and what helps them get to the point that says, I need some help, I
Yeah.
can't do this. What's
You
your
know,
experience?
that's a great question. And I'm gonna give you my answer based on
Okay.
my lived experience and
Yes.
some of the women that I've worked with and helped. And I have to tell you, once you get to the point where nothing is getting done,
Mm.
and you may not consciously recognize it, because
Mm-hmm.
how it will manifest, meaning nothing is getting done, how it may look in some women
Yes.
is not necessarily being happy about going to work every day.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, yes, I want to start this business, but you notice that you're not taking action to file the LLC. You're not
Yes.
calling. You notice that you still have these dreams, you have these aspirations, but all of a sudden, all you're doing is thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
dwelling on it,
Mm-hmm.
or somehow, some way, subconsciously delaying it.
Yes.
Nothing's getting done. And for me, that's when I said, okay, because when you think of, okay, I have to go to work every day, or I have to do this with my fertility, or I have to do this appointment for, in my case, I am caring for the older generation. My mom and dad are 80 and 81,
Mm-hmm.
and my
Mm-hmm.
mother-in-law is 70. So I have three
Mm-hmm.
elders that, and you'll notice, okay, I have to do this for this appointment. I have to do that for this task. I need to do research on what I would like my business to be on, and you're excited about it, but
Yeah.
nothing's getting done. Then all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden it's going to click where you're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm stuck. Because the minute you can't even function is
Mm-hmm.
when, but again, a lot of us aren't cognizant of that. But now
Right.
that I'm saying it out loud, I want us to really sit back and think about, is that what I'm experiencing? Where I have all these dreams and aspirations. I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do. But all of a sudden, slowly but surely, I'm not taking action. And
Yes.
that is one of the ways that women can identify, you know what, I'm stuck. They may not even know what they're stuck on or why
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
what to do, but knowing it and acknowledging and catching it is the
Mm-hmm.
first step that now they'll say, okay, how can I do research? Who do I reach out to help me get unstuck? Right.
That's right.
And it might be that you know what you want to do personally, but because you're stuck professionally, nothing gets done. You'll show up to work, and you're looking at the
I mean,
computer and trying to figure out what time you're leaving, and it's time.
yeah.
So you end up doing things that don't involve strategy, things that don't involve you thinking, okay, good, it's time now. Okay, I can go eat, because you know you have to eat, right? That's easy.
Exactly.
Okay, I have to
Exactly.
leave now because I have to go pick up the kids. Oh, okay, well, that's easy. But in the
That's right.
meantime, nothing's
Yes.
happening. So once you realize that, then you take the steps to say, okay, who can I reach out to? And I would first start
Mm-hmm.
off with a trusted friend or family
Mm-hmm.
member.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason why I say that is because they often know people who can help you, right?
Yeah. That's right.
I got into therapy, and I'm with my same therapist after my infertility, or during my infertility journey. My husband and I also, experienced a loss, and that was my first entryway into therapy after having
Okay.
that grief. And I'm still
Mm-hmm.
with her, and she's been able to kind of help me navigate the different issues I deal with in my life, because what you deal with
Mm-hmm.
when you're going through infertility is not the same as
Mm-hmm.
after maybe you become a mom, and then you have the
Yeah.
work and maybe your relationship dynamic. So I say that to say, once women are recognizing that they're in a rut, you're not
Yeah.
able to move forward,
Yeah.
nothing is getting accomplished, you seek out help. Start with a trusted person, and that
Mm-hmm.
trusted person will refer you to someone. And once that
Mm-hmm.
happens, you'll know
Mm-hmm.
who to talk to, and they'll kind of help you get out of it. Mhm.
Exactly. I love that, because also you become overwhelmed.
Correct.
Okay. You start having physical things going on with you.
Correct.
That's where the mental illness
Correct.
sometimes comes in. So I love it when you said you were sure, but you knew something wasn't right.
Right.
and then from that point, I don't know, did it take the loss of a child for you to seek help? Maybe,
It did.
yeah,
It did.
yeah,
It did,
yeah, yeah.
because before that, we think that we can handle it. And
Hmm.
remember, and a lot of times when we're going through disruption and we're experiencing it, we're doing it in a very silent way, in a
Yes,
very lonely way. So
yes,
let's say a woman is her disruption, she's in leadership, she's juggling all the things. Her disruption may be, unfortunately, dealing with domestic violence, or it may
yes,
be a horrible diagnosis, or it may be a divorce.
yes.
You're dealing with it in a silent and lonely manner because of
Mhm.
either shame, or you don't want people to judge you, you don't want them to think you're less than. So it sometimes takes for that huge thing to rattle you, and then you
Yes,
have to make that strategic decision to employ the next steps that are necessary, because
that's
if not, you'll stay stuck. And then once mentally you're stuck, like you said, Miss Cassandra, it
ooh,
starts to manifest in your
yeah,
body,
that's
and
right.
that makes
That's
it
right.
even worse. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And I call that silent suffering. I mean,
Absolutely.
and that's serious,
Yes.
silent suffering. And plus, as
Mhm.
women, we're responsible for a lot. And we think we're
Yes.
super women. We can do that. We can
Correct.
handle that. We can't let everybody
Correct.
know that we're dealing with this issue
Correct.
because we're supposed to be strong.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that way, when I think about it, and I'm going to talk, I want you to talk about your TEDx talk because that kind of goes into it. First of all, congratulations. I
Thank
know
you.
um, being accepted to approve to be a TEDx talker is not an easy process,
It took a
and
long time.
obviously, oh yeah, obviously it's maybe a dream but you took
Yes.
action. That's something that
Correct.
you took action.
Mhm.
So what was the focus on your TEDx talk?
The focus of my TEDx talk was to show how what people frame as something that may cause you to be deemed weak or
Mm-hmm.
not enough is actually your superpower,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability comes into play. And it really ties into what you just mentioned, that women, we're tasked with handling everything. And
Mm-hmm.
not only are you supposed to handle everything, you have to do it with grace.
Yeah.
You have to do it quick. It has to be correct. There's no room for error.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we do walk around with a mask on, where you could be falling apart inside and you never let that show because you're expected, whether it's pressure you put on yourself, but oftentimes it's pressure from external, family,
Yeah.
friends, society, the culture. And we have to reframe that whatever is causing you to present as a shell of yourself, it's not a setback. It's
Yeah.
actually a superpower. You have to
Yeah.
lean into that, so
Mm-hmm.
that, because at the end of the day, just because you're showing up as if nothing's wrong, does that really mean nothing's wrong?
Right. That's right.
It's
That's
part of you. It's
that's good.
part of your life. So
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to really be vulnerable. I'm not saying share your business with everyone in the world, because obviously there's a time and place for everything. But you
That's right.
use disruption, and you use that thing that was set out to make you seem weak, to set out to make you seem not enough, the thing that set out to make you stressed. You use it to your advantage,
Mm-hmm.
because it is. Because at the end of the day, we have to reframe it, that it shouldn't be looked at as a negative thing. Like, let's take women leaders. Oftentimes, with all my research, you find that women make, I think it's 88% on the dollar compared to a man, something like that, right?
Yes,
So,
yes, that's true. Yes.
correct. Why? They pay the men more because they can be there. So, when
Mm,
you really sit back and look at it, my research also shows that companies who have women in the leadership roles, they
mhm,
stand to make between 13 and 31% more money to their bottom line. So,
mm,
if not for anything else, even if the company only cared about money, right? If not for anything else, you have to invest in and support your women that are on these jobs, because you have a guy that you're going to pay more money
That's
because
true.
what he can sit there for 60 hours.
Right.
Okay. But the woman can do the same amount of work with the right
Correct.
support
That's
and with
correct.
a positive outlook. She can
Mm-hmm.
do it in 40 hours. Yes, she
Mm-hmm.
has to come and go. Yes, she has
Mm-hmm.
to, log in, after hours,
Yeah,
or maybe she has to,
absolutely.
in my case last week, I had to take my kids to the orthodontist for the dentist. So what did
Right.
I do? I adjusted my hours for that day. The work
Uh-huh.
still got done. So
That's
it's a
right.
matter of reframing that whole thought that women leaders are weak if they need help. And what is
Mm-hmm.
help? Help is support. It may be a flexible schedule. Maybe they're going through something in their life. You being able to allot them the flexibility they need to
Right.
thrive is not a weakness. It is a
Exactly.
superpower. Okay, because
Right.
we have to do it and we can do it anyway. So
Exactly.
the TEDx
Exactly.
talk was really about, being eye-opening to organizations to provide more support for women, and an
Right.
eye-opener for women ourselves. Whatever disruption we're going through, don't automatically let you count yourself out, because that
Right.
is not the case. You need to
That's
lean
right.
into that and then go from there.
That's correct. That's correct. Because you just made, I remember I had a boss and one of my colleagues became pregnant.
Yes.
And sometimes I think they forget what they say and who they're
Right.
saying it to. And I
Right.
remember him coming into my office and he said, well, she won't be as effective because now she's going to have a child and she's going to have to spend her time more with that child. So it's going to take away her productivity from doing her work. And I'm like, why is that?
Yeah.
Why so? But those are the things, those filters that we hear, and
Yes.
and then we get those internal barriers. Well, I can't have it. I can have a child, but I
Right.
can't in the time with the
Right.
child because they think that I don't put the work in. So I love it when you say you have to reframe it.
Right.
I like it when you say you have to have mentors and coaches and therapy because who says you can't do that? Where did
Correct.
that come from?
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
bizarre, and it's amazing that you mentioned that, because one of my study participants for my
Okay.
research, that is
Yeah.
exact when she shared that with me, we both got so emotional when she said she, in secret, in silence, was going through her infertility, and
Uh-huh.
somehow either someone walked into her office and overheard the ending part of a conversation. So that's how that coworker found out that she was dealing with whatever she was dealing with. She picked the phone call up while she was in her office. And lo and behold, that person went and told someone in management, who happened to be
Mhm.
a guy, a male, and
Mhm.
it was time, and he didn't know how to approach her, right? Because he found
Mhm.
this out through someone else. So he didn't know how to
Mhm. Right.
directly approach her.
Exactly.
So he waited until it was time for them to talk about performance reviews
Yeah.
and her future with the company. And he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, and by the way, I know you recently got married. Congratulations on that. And I found out, or I heard, however he framed it, that you're trying to grow your family. Just know that you won't be able to go
Right.
for that position that you're in, because
Exactly.
that's going to change your
Yeah.
trajectory with the company. We'll still find another role for you, but you won't be able to
Oh,
go
yeah.
for director."
Absolutely.
What is that?
That's right. That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. And then we don't use the voice because we have fear we're going to lose our jobs.
Correct.
We need the
Correct.
money. So let's be
Correct.
quiet like little girls should
Yes.
be, don't be
Exactly.
outspoken. So I get it. So what are some,
Exactly.
because I think in your TED talk, there were some practical steps that can help turn those challenges around. So what are some practical steps you can share with my listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to the TED Talk, I also have my MCD framework that I use, and it's something
Uh-huh.
that it sounds so simple, but it
Mhm.
really helps you to reset and just keep things moving forward. Because at the end of the day, the one thing that we can count on for sure is change and
Right.
disruption. It's all
That's
around
right.
us, right? So,
Mhm.
one of the things that I find very helpful is woman to woman, check in with other women. Allow yourself to be that safe space for them
Mhm.
should you notice that something's going on. One of the main examples I used in my TEDx talk is, if we know Miss Cassandra, is always happy and she's always saying good morning every morning, or whatever it is, your actions and your behavior, and all of a sudden you notice that it's different, reach out to her. Don't automatically think that you're going to judge or something's going on. Like, you want to be able to be that safe space, for other women. And that's really important to me, because we all need a little sense of relatability and a sense of safety to know that we can land somewhere should we need it, So that's one of the things that I talk about. The other ones, as it relates to my MCD principles, are to be motivated, because what's going to happen is, as disruption shows up in your life, it might try to throw you off. It might cause you to become stagnant and not productive. And it might cause you to question your why. Why should I go on? And that's where being motivated, that's the M, that's where that comes into place, because one of the things, like we just mentioned, constant change and disruption, those are not going away. But as long as you remember your why, it motivates you to keep going and do whatever it is that you need to do to change the world. Okay, because and it's important. So you got to stay motivated. The next one is to be courageous. You have to have courage. Now, being courageous doesn't mean that fear is not going to set in. See, that's what people seem to think. Oh, no, I'm always going to be strong. No, being courageous means, in spite of the fear, in spite of the unknown, in spite of whatever that's going on, try it anyway. Because if you don't do it, one, you're going to live in regret and never know.
Yeah.
Right? Who can live in the past wondering what if, because we're afraid? But as long as you're courageous, you'll try it, so you'll have the answer. Maybe you won't do it again, but at least you know now, right?
Experience. Exactly.
So being courageous is very, very important, because you are bigger than whatever it is that you're going through, right? So you have to be courageous. And finally, you want to be dynamic. And the reason why I love dynamism, it plays into what I love about being authentic, right? And being able to adapt, is until you accept and acknowledge whatever it is that you're going through, you're always going to show up as a shell of yourself. And that does no one no good. Perfect example, right? If you decide, like, let's take the case of infertility, and something happens and you don't want to go to a baby shower. Guess what? It's okay. You don't go to a baby shower, because people don't understand. You know that that's a trigger for you. You are important. So it's okay to not go. However, if you decide to show up, you show up authentically yourself. You don't lower yourself. You don't try to hide. You don't try to, just be in the room but not seen. You're not being authentic, because at that point, the other option is just don't go. Don't do it to yourself.
That's right.
So if you're used to being the bubbly person, the supportive person, whatever it is, you show up as her, because it's important to have that authenticity, because at the end of the day, we're all walking around with masks on, and half the time we don't know who we're dealing with. And you're only doing yourself a disservice, because what if you show up as or you're sad. So it's someone else's day, but you're showing up like that. And then now it becomes about you. And because you maybe are a good person, which you strive for all of us to be, you now go home and say, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. And I wish I didn't present that way. And now you can't go back and change it. Versus you being authentic. If you show up authentically, regardless of what's going on, you never have to look back and regret.
That's right. Get your power back, right?
That's right.
Get power and lead unapologetically.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. How important is that? Now, and what you share, and we're not saying it's easy to do, the mindset and they said that, but look at them. And comparison is a thief of joy. Right. And a lot of us compare, like, oh, she's had her child, oh, me. Yeah. And all of that, as you indicated, comes from experience and the why.
Yeah.
Why why is that important? Like for example, my why in my life is I don't want any regrets. I
Correct.
don't want to be on my way transitioning and they said, well, what did you regret? I regret that I couldn't be true to myself, or I regret I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Why is that? So that's kind of my why. So then you have to define what it is. As you indicated, what does success mean? Success is different for everybody. So what does that look like? And for example, I want you to share a little bit about your infertility.
Yes.
And individuals now know you have a child, and if I'm not mistaken, you have twins.
Yes, I have I have actually four. I have four children, all
Okay.
boys. Okay,
Oh
so I
wow.
have,
Uh-huh.
yes, I have my oldest son. He's been with me since a little before he turned 2. He's my husband's firstborn. I always
Okay.
say that Richard is the one that gave me no labor pains. Okay, so I have a
Okay.
pre baby, and then
Okay.
I have the twin boys. They're 13. They'll be 14 in November. And
Mhm.
I have our youngest son. He is 8. So I have a house full of boys.
Full of
Yes.
boys. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow, a lot of testosterone coming on in that house.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Wow.
absolutely.
You talked about superpower,
Mhm.
and I've heard you talk about superwoman.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Superpower versus a superwoman.
That's a good question. I don't know if I actually have a specific
Okay.
answer for it. I think Superwoman is what other people perceive us to be. Because
Okay.
oftentimes, because other people perceive us to be super women, we take on what we think the
Mhm.
qualities, the requirements, the aspects of what it is to be superwoman. Because you'll find that women don't call themselves superwomen. Sometimes
Mhm.
other people refer
Yeah.
to women as superwomen. So what
Mhm.
we do is take on what we think, oh, they think I'm superwoman. Okay, I have to do this, no break, no sleep, no eat, no fun,
Mhm.
no
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
think we take on the traits or the perceived
Mhm.
characteristics of superwomen. So it's from
Mhm.
a third party lens, I think is
Okay.
what Superwoman
Okay.
is.
Right.
Superpower, I think, is internal.
Mhm.
We have our
Okay.
superpowers. And it's about reframing because even though
Mhm.
people want us or want women to be super women, they don't know what the actual like powers are that'll get it done. They just know you need to get it
Mhm.
done versus us women, we have to reframe all of these things that we're doing and look at them as our superpower. So let me give you an example. A superpower would be someone is saying, okay, Miss Cassandra has to go to work, leave work, go to the appointment, remember to schedule the appointment for the dentist for the 4 children, call the school to make sure that we talk about the testing results, figure out where we're going on vacation, and we'll need to set
Mhm.
up a meeting to do that on the weekend when everyone's together, all these things, right? So
Yeah.
that's because I think Miss Cassandra is superwoman. She's going to get all this done because that's her job, right? She can do
Mhm.
it. She got it.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
when you actually look at it, Cassandra, that superpower is that you are a taskmaster, you are organized, right? And
Mhm.
you're very
Mhm.
strategic and you know how to plan. That's the
Mhm.
superpower. So
Mhm.
instead of looking at it as a negative thing, oh my gosh, they're dumping on me. They want everyone wants me to do this, that, or that. You look at it as, okay, they're going to come to you anyway, Miss Cassandra.
Mhm.
Think about it.
Mhm.
All these
That's right.
people who want things from you, they're going to come
That's
to you
right.
anyway,
That's
right?
right.
And
That's
because
right.
they're coming to you, you look at it as, oh, they want me to use my superpowers to get all of this done. But guess what?
Yeah.
I'm going to set boundaries. I'm going
That's
to do
right.
it on my time. I'm
That's
going to
right.
do it when it's good for me. And I'm going to do it in a manner that works for me.
Right.
So, so to specifically answer the question, superwoman, I think, is what everybody perceives women to be because you get all of these things done. And then your
Mhm.
superpower is reframing all of that.
Mhm.
And instead of being, because
Mhm.
why do we get frustrated or, maybe upset or sad about doing
Right.
everything? Because we feel people are dumping on us. We feel we're not appreciated. We feel we're giving up ourselves to do this for all the people. No, 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 no,
Right.
no. Our
No.
superpower now is, oh, you want me to do that? Oh, okay, great. Thank you for making me remember that I'm a great planner. But now I'm going
Exactly.
to plan on my time, not on your time.
Exactly. And a superpower could be the word no. No.
That's what I mean. Boundaries.
That's right. No.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So all the women you've spoken with, and after you did your TEDx speech,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people came to you. Like you
Yes.
probably had a line of individuals that
Yes,
wanted to
I
ask you
did.
questions.
Yes.
Were there any common patterns that you noticed in how people define success
You
for
know,
them? Like,
they
what are
didn't
they
they
looking for?
didn't really talk to me about success, but I will tell you that a lot of the comments, Miss Cassandra, centered around one lady in particular. She said, I love how you framed your talk around disruption. And she
Mhm.
said, because I didn't have an infertility experience.
Yes.
However, my disruption was grief. She says, I work
Mhm.
in corporate America, I'm a corporate
Mhm.
executive, and I
Mhm.
lost my dad unexpectedly. And I
Mhm.
had no idea how to deal with that. And what was required of me at work was just unbelievable. And I still don't know how to, you know, deal with that.
Right.
And she said, thank you so much for framing it because it allows us to be relatable. We can relate to
Right.
you, you
Okay.
know? And
Okay.
sometimes another thing that I mentioned in the TEDx talk was around pausing. And a
Mm.
lot of times you won't see it on the talk because of how they edit, but I literally paused there, maybe in a stage in front of like 400 people. When you pause with nothing to say for about a good minute and a half,
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone's wondering, well, what's going on? And she
Exactly.
said, to see you exhibit that, because people will tell you, well, take a break or walk away. She goes, no, I'm happy to tell my therapist when I speak to her, I now see what you meant when you said, take a pause. So there was a lot of relatability,
Okay.
right, with the women up there, and them knowing that it's okay to pause. It's okay to go through what you're going through. It's okay to
Okay.
advocate for yourself because the
Okay.
disruption is going to happen. So those were a lot of the comments that I got just about the level of relatability.
Okay.
They thanked me for allowing them to feel seen and heard.
Okay.
She said,
Okay.
although I didn't have infertility, and some of them were dealing with infertility and came to me and shared other experiences as
Sure.
well. But
Yeah.
the overall arching, the overarching comments and responses that I received centered around our level of support, being able
Okay.
to be relatable, and knowing that
Okay.
it's not the end all be all with whatever you're
Okay.
going through.
Okay. So I like that. So it's not so much success.
Mm-hmm.
Success can mean you see me,
Right,
I'm
exactly.
present, I get the support, you know.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
that can be success. Being in corporate for some may be a success. I mean,
Right.
but that's not it.
That's not
When
it. It's not
people,
all
yeah,
that. Yeah.
that's not, it's not all of that.
Yeah.
So you talked about how women can reclaim their power. We talked about boundaries. You
Yeah.
didn't mention this, but I do know you journal.
Yes.
You
Yes.
journal to kind of get things out there.
Yeah.
I liked it when you indicated that your weakness is a strength. It could
It
be a
is.
strength. You could turn
Yeah.
that around.
Right.
And then there were some practical things that you talked about. Um, one of the things you like, uh,
Yeah. Being
it's
being motivated, right?
yeah,
Being
right,
courageous, dynamic,
courageous
and
and
so
dynamic. That's
seeking out
correct.
to be a safe space for other women around you, creating that safe
Right,
space. Yeah.
right, right. And that is very good. And
Yeah.
I also, and I said in the beginning, I loved it when you said it'll happen by 30.
Right.
Okay. And
Right.
I remember I would say, okay, I will be married when I'm 30.
Right.
Okay, that didn't happen. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what's wrong?
Right.
Or I'm going to get this promotion when I'm 40, you
Mhm.
know, um, and as you indicate, these are things you planned, you thought was going to happen, but they didn't.
Right.
So when they don't, you want to make sure and do practical tools and steps that you spoke about so it
Exactly.
won't ruin you. so to speak,
Exactly.
because you can be bitter or better about a situation that occurs in your life.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what's most important. Just remembering to stay the course, because once we accept and acknowledge that things don't always go according to plan, it allows our brain to open up and see other alternatives and see other ways. And then you're not so hard on yourself, because a lot of the things that don't go according to plan, what people fail to realize, sometimes it's not in your control. And we want to internalize it and say, well, what could we have done differently? And sometimes you could not have done anything differently. So
That's
it's just
correct.
about acknowledging that.
That's correct. That's correct. One other question I have, and then we're going to talk about how people can find you and things of that nature. But you said something that really was thought provoking for me.
Yes.
You made a comment that what you wear can reflect what you believe about yourself. Can you say a
Correct.
little more about that?
Let me tell you, simple. My
Okay.
mom told me, and she still tells me this to this day,
Uh-huh.
the way you present yourself is how people will receive you, period. Now,
Okay.
I know in school we've always learned don't judge a book by its cover and
That's
all the
right.
things that's when you're on an external, right? Me on the outside looking in, I'm not going to judge you based on what you look like or whatever, right? That's what
Uh-huh.
we're taught. But in my home, in my household, my mom says always show up how you want people to receive you. And because of that, I have always taken pride in what I wear. You wear certain colors lighten you up, it improves your mood. You
Mhm.
know, wear certain lip colors, and like now I don't have on any makeup. I just put on lipstick. But
Right.
you show up bubbly, you show up, in a way where you're always ready. And one of the things my mom used to say is, when you go to school, there's school clothes. When you come home, there's home clothes. If you're stepping out to the grocery store, you have to
Okay.
put on your grocery store clothes. When we're going to church, there's church
Yeah.
clothes. There's a time and
Mhm.
place for
Yeah.
everything. But I do truly feel that, but on the flip side of that, in my career, one of my mentors was my old boss. She was the previous CFO. She thought differently. She felt, as long as you don't come into this office naked, I don't care what you wear, because it's all about, yeah. She goes, it's all
Oh,
about what's in here. I hired you for your brain. I didn't hire you for what you look like. So we
mm,
always had like a back and forth, because I would come
yeah.
in here, Miss Cassandra, I am dressed up. And when I started here, I was 21. So my hair's done, my
Right.
clothes professional, and I went to a high school that was really business savvy as well. They prepped us for business
Mhm.
attire. So
Mhm.
they would always look at me like, where does this girl think she's going? And in my mind, so I'm listening to them that, oh, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter as long as I do
Yeah.
my work. But then on
Yeah.
the other side, it's my mom said, you need to make sure you show up. You want them to receive you. So
That's right.
go
Okay.
either way. Ultimately, it's
Yeah.
all about what's in here. It's all about what's
That's
in your
true.
heart.
That's
And
true.
you want to be able to make an impact on people. But for me personally, yes, I like to show up polished. You like to be prepared, and you want
Mhm.
to make sure that people flock to you and accept you for who you truly are, instead of making a judgment at first and then trying to get, you don't want to have to deal with that.
Exactly. Exactly. And you tend to act differently, your
Correct.
behavior. Yeah. And
Correct.
I've seen kids that have uniforms in school and they act so different. But you let
Correct.
them wear whatever they want to wear, they're just all over the place. So
Exactly.
that says a lot. So I like that when you
Yeah.
said that.
Hmm.
Um, First, I want to thank you so much for this conversation. I loved
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. And where can people connect with you, learn more about your work, and get a copy of your book? Now, I know you have a
Yeah.
children's book,
Yes.
and you have a podcast that we didn't talk about.
Right.
And I think the podcast is Issues That Matter to Women, is your
Yes,
podcast,
it's
right?
Women
Okay.
Matter. Yes, the Women Matter
Okay.
podcast. You can find it on my YouTube page. All the episodes are there as well. And everywhere and everything about me is on my website,
Uh-huh.
www.mcdbe.com. It's right here, right
Okay.
next to my name. And from
Okay.
there, it can link you to my social medias, which is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my name. My Instagram is MCDBE, just like the website. And
Okay.
my book you can find on Amazon. It'll Happen by 30, A Relentless Journey of Faith, Delayed but Not Denied, and my two children's books. I wrote two children's books in honor of my children to help, really help children embrace what makes them unique and also be accepting of other people and their uniqueness. And that's one book, Kason and Camden, Yes, We're Twins, But I'm Still Me. And the other book, KB, The Bossy Rainbow Baby, just really talks about how sometimes we have these little people in our life and we think, oh my gosh, they're so bossy and they don't listen and what's going on? And it's like, no, they are leaders in the making, right? So you help them hone in on that skill and, learn and support them from there. So those are available on Amazon, but also on my website, www.mcdbe.com.
Okay. Motivated, courage, dynamic.
That's right. Absolutely.
Right? Okay. That's right. So again, thank you so much. And my listeners, please share this podcast with individuals that you know they will be blessed by it. And if you want to hear more, please subscribe and like. Thank you very much. God bless and bye for now. Again, thank you, Dr. Marr.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you.